Oh, Bretto.
What's up, MP?
Damo just called.
Yeah?
He thinks there's going to be 100,000 people at the Wellness Summit.
Oh, again?
He thinks we're bigger than Michael Jackson, the Rolling Stones and the Beatles all put together.
Damien Christoph has gone completely mad.
Did you know he's made 8 tons of forage?
What?
And now he wants you and I to help him get rid of it.
Oh, Damo.
So look, being the good friends that we are, we've asked him.
You mean forced?
Well, we've kind of twisted his arm to make him literally give his forage away to 100 lucky Wellness Summit attendees.
So if you're ready to enrol for our signature 2 days of inspiration, education and empowerment...
And entertainment.
What do you mean, MP?
Well, Australian Idol winner Wes Carr makes his Wellness Summit debut this year, Bretto.
Wes Carr, you'll be guilty!
So if you're ready to be entertained, head on over to thewellnesssummit.com.
And get 4 value bags of forage muesli or 1 bag each of paleo, muesli, bircher and porridge when you register.
Now, all you need to do is register for this 2-for-1 special, bring a buddy, bring a friend, bring a family member or a colleague.
And then choose your forage selection, 4 muesli or 4 assorted, and get 4 bags per attendee. That's 8 bags per double pass.
That's almost $250 of forage for free when you register for the Wellness Summit on August 25-26 at the Collingwood Town Hall in Melbourne.
That's 150 serves of breakfast, almost 6 months of breakfast just for registering for the Wellness Summit.
Well, it's first in, best dressed. These 100 tickets are only available until June 18 or until sold out.
All the details of this special offer, all the topics, featured speakers and more are over at thewellnesssummit.com.
Thanks for making 8 tons of forage, Damo.
TheWellnessCouch.com, streaming wellness into your lives.
Welcome to Nourishing the Mother, featuring your hosts Bridget Wood and Julie Tenner.
Before we get started today, I'd love to introduce you to our new podcast sponsor, which is Fire Tonic. If you haven't heard of Fire Tonic before, it is a raw fermented apple cider vinegar that has a whole heap of other goodness in it, such as chilies, turmeric, garlic, horseradish, ginger, just to name a few, and it has this delicious warming, spicy kind of aftertaste that just warms your stomach and your solar plexus and has you feeling amazing just by taking it. But aside from that, raw apple cider vinegar is immune boosting. It's antibacterial, antiviral. It will decongest whatever you are stuffed up in the head with. It's antioxidant and anti-inflammatory. It's also the best digestive booster. Apple cider vinegar is the same pH as our natural secretions and also stimulates those natural secretions. So if you're feeling a bit low in your digestive system, if you've got a bit of a sore throat or feel something coming on, it's great. I've used this before just to knock something on its head, like a sore throat or a virus that's gone through the rest of my family. And for me, I've just kept up with the Fire Tonic little shots, which I absolutely love anyway because I love a bit of spice. And it really does just knock it on its head. So it is locally made here in Torquay, Victoria, in small batches from a really ancient gypsy recipe. And we are absolutely mad for it. So if you also need a bit of a boost this winter that you can take that is delicious, digestive and immune boosting, then please jump on to hillbilby, hillbilby.com.au and check them out. You can also use a special promo code for our tribe, which is Nourish, Nourish 10, in order to get 10% off your order, just to give it a go. Bridget and I use it. It's on our counter all the time. So head on over to hillbilby.com.au/discount/Nourish 10 to get your 10% off and start loving on some Fire Tonic.
Hello and welcome to Nourishing the Mother. I'm Bridget Wood.
And I'm Julie Tenner. And today's podcast is If You're Triggered, Are They Your Tribe? So we are looking to really seek to answer that question and balance your perceptions and hopefully distill a little bit of wisdom in the process. Before we get there, we'd love to remind you to jump onto nourishingthemother.com.au and sign up to join our tribe on the front page with your email address, where once a week, although
or maybe
this week,
once every couple of weeks,
we'll send you an email that has links to everything we've put out in the world, and you can pick and choose and click away where you'd love to dive a little deeper. So if you would like a little little bit of extra wisdom through your week, then jump on to nourishingthemother.com.au and sign up to join the tribe.
Yes. So this topic, I think, is just so relevant for so many mothers who are on this intentional mothering journey, perhaps with a defined set of values around family and health and perhaps community connection. And I thought it gels beautifully with our episode last week where Lana interviewed us, and we got to the point at which we talked about how we met, and we met in a very, I suppose, counterculture kind of way with a natural parenting play group. And in fact, we needed to be triggered by the status quo, the outer world, in order to find each other. And so this is, again, this idea that, sometimes our very great polarizations in the world lead us to such immense awakening and connection and wonderful things. And so I think that that's a great platform in which to have this conversation, knowing that for us, having those triggers led us each onto a path of enormous growth.
Which really, if we talk about our title for this podcast, by virtue of not finding our tribe, we were forced into the research, the growth, the learning, the empowerment within certain areas of ourselves and our lives to find our tribe or to consciously create our tribe. So by virtue of not having a tribe, they were our best friends because they forced us, as you were saying, Bridget, onto exactly the path that we were always meant to be on.
Yeah, and I dare say that those who are feeling triggered and unheard and perhaps really out of connection with the women that are around them or the mothers around them, you're very much likely to be online quite a lot, researching, really wanting to find and surround yourself with what feels aligned for you. And in that process, you're amassing a great amount of knowledge and real resonance with what feels good for you. And I wouldn't discount that in terms of that being so perfect for the path you're on. Because I think about the countless, hours that I would spend even before I had Hugo around researching birth and pregnancy and parenting. And I had nobody else around me to give me that information. But I knew, intuitively what I wanted to find out. And I think that, in the absence of having the people that are reflecting that to you, you're almost on your own and you're almost following your own soul's unfolding on that journey.
So, Bridget, on our online Loathing to Loving week, we have just been through our values week. And one of the biggest probably struggle points with values is when they appear to be clashing. So either clashing within our own hierarchy or clashing with those that we super love or are really intimate with, spend a lot of time with, and often that's partners or family, and we feel really defensive and charged up because the beliefs that we have seem to be really different to the beliefs that they have, and there's a clashing on things like parenting or health or money, whatever it is that's in that top value system. So I just thought maybe you could rattle off a bit of wisdom the way that you do in regards to this particular topic. Is how does something that appears to be like a kind of siren's call of clashing from an exterior person, you want to go, oh, I just can't stand them and I hate the way they do this and I can't believe they do that and da-da-da. Do you just want to break that down for us in terms of this topic?
Yes, I think with our own values, we almost tend to have a certain righteousness, the things that we feel are most important to us. I mean, as an example, even just earlier, I was just looking through Facebook and reading a few different articles around birth and home birth and intervention, and I was so angry about what I was reading. I was actually speaking to my husband about it and just ranting off. And I knew I wanted him to agree with me because I was feeling so right about my judgments on things. And that's a really good reflection about, our own values. And we almost feel like, of course, the world should agree with this because how could there be any other way? This is just right. And that emotion that we feel within it is actually a reflection of where we might be wise to, balance out our polarizations. At the same time, though, we're reflecting that this is in fact something important to us. When we feel ourselves getting energized by something or getting, perhaps, feeling attacked or just, feeling like we're really wanting to advocate for something that's important to us, or that's really us calling us into finding our voice on something that's important to us. And so when we find that we're clashing with other people around something, usually that's because the clash is there to help us get into greater congruence with what we're valuing, and also in some ways to balance us out. If we're super highly emotional about something or really polarized, that person, that challenger is there to get us to break beyond our sense of self-righteousness, to find the grace within it and to find the wisdom with the fact that we're always going to attract in people to challenge us, and those challenges are there to help us get congruent, find our voice, and also get off any kind of pedestal we might have ourselves on in terms of our own level of being right, because every single person in the world has their own unique set of values, which therefore determines the position in which they see the world and that they see themselves in relationship to the world. And because of that, because we're all looking at the world with these filters, it means that nobody is right or wrong. We're all simply here for evolution and through the lens of our own service in the world and our own actions and values in the world.
So can I just ask, when you're saying that person will attract people to come in and kind of break our polarizations or take us off our own desire for righteousness, what does that actually look like?
Well, it looks like, the incredible perhaps one-sidedness that we might have about having to have the perfect birth or having to have this beautiful breastfeeding journey that's going to be easy and we're going to do it unlike those other women who couldn't do it like I'm going to do it, or we're going to snap right back into our body because we're super fit and healthy and we're not going to have any problems whatsoever. It's to get us back into humility, to a grander design.
How do we get into humility? Is that like pride before the fall?
It is a bit like that, isn't it? Because when we're really puffed up and proud about something and we think that we've got all the answers, it's like we're like a red flag going, hey,
I need balancing.
I'm ready to equilibrate.
Even though I really don't want to.
If I can't do it myself, I know the universe will. It's that, right? And it's brutal when that happens. And that is also why it's wise to have a set of questions around what we're feeling so that we can start to naturally do that for ourselves, to have the courage sometimes to go, maybe that thing that I think I'm always right about or is just the right way, what could the drawbacks be of that happening? What could the drawbacks be of having a natural, undisturbed birth? And when we're finding it really hard to answer, that there are no drawbacks, it's like I did this whole exercise before I had Sylvie. I think it was on all of the benefits of having a cesarean, because at that point I couldn't see any. And it was really hard work. And by the time I'd done it, I was like, okay, all right, I'm humbled. I can see there's enormous benefits of that. They're much broader than that really narrow way that I was looking at it, which was purely physiological and purely about that postpartum period. Like when you start asking bigger questions and what's the benefit of that? And what if that happened? And what would the drawback be if this didn't happen? You start to break your attachment to things needing to be a certain way and you having to be right. And it's incredibly empowering to start to see that there are so many different ways of living and being in the world, and our way is not the right way.
So is the purpose of doing this so that in a way you sort of have, you're on the fence in the middle, you kind of have one foot in each camp and you can see both sides, and therefore you get to choose a path that feels, I get both sides, but I'm making an informed choice because this is what aligns most greatly with my values or my sense of, virtue of where I'm headed in this world. Is that kind of It
allows you to choose sort of an inspired action without getting stuck in like the passion, because, passion, and everybody talks about wanting to be passionate about something or, to really bring alive their passion. Passion is almost like an animalistic sort of trait where there's a real, there's almost pain in it. There's almost pain in our passion because we're pained in terms of wanting to express it. Whereas inspired action almost comes from a state of more of our angelic self, which sort of knows that the world's going to be the way the world is, but we want to bring our own imprint on it that's from something deep within us that's seeking to be heard, and not in a way that's judging others, but simply our kind of corner of the world that we want to change, or impart wisdom on. So it's not to say, everything's always in balance, so what's the point? Or it doesn't matter which way it goes because either side's fine. It's not about that. That's indifference. You want to move beyond that to see that for yourself and for where you're being called, that is the best place for you. But also recognizing that even if what you wanted to happen didn't eventuate and you had some other experience or some other, set of values perhaps, that you would still be okay and that you would find wisdom in those too.
How do you know if you're in an inspiration type flow or if you are in the indifference, wait and see?
Listen to your body. So your body is such an incredible communicator of that. When we're really in deep inspiration, we feel vital. We have this sense of energy that comes from sometimes nowhere. Like we could be really tired and then we start to talk about a topic and we wake up and we've just got this, wellspring of power and wisdom. And that's when we know that there's an inspired place within us. Whereas if we're almost pained by wanting to communicate what we're communicating, or we're feeling really lethargic in our bodies, or it just feels heavy, it might still be something that's important to us, but there might be a lot of stuck energy around it, like that we might be still working through a lot of our own heaviness and stuffiness around a topic. Even I was talking with two of my sister-in-laws who've had babies in the past year, just yesterday, and as I was listening to their perspectives on their birth stories and their perspectives on early parenting, I could feel like lots of energy in my womb and in my heart, and I just was checking in with it as I was listening to their stories and really trying to listen.
Like a bristling energy,
kind of like an almost like a stagnant, kind of uncomfortable feeling, like a stirring, which I really read into, that as communicating to me that was an area for me that I still had a lot of, I don't want to say pain around, but pain from the perspective of the feminine. Like I'm listening to these stories of birth intervention, these women who had such a horrible time and really hadn't healed it. And for me, I was almost feeling the pain of that feminine who really wanted to heal from that. And I'd taken that on as an energy. And so that was communicating to me that I know that's still an area of enormous, exploration. Importance for me to really help women see how much power they have and how we're in a system that's not set up to awaken them to that power. And so, but I also recognize that there's some people who you can have that conversation with and some that you just can't, and to respect that. And I think that was also my body communicating with me too, to know that there was certainly a time in the past where I would have felt like it was my responsibility, to communicate certain things, whereas I have the wisdom now to know when to say things and when not to say things, and that and how to have respect for other people's choices. Even if I don't feel like they might be very informed. You know what I mean?
I really do.
So that's an example, I think, of checking in with your body.
And did that highlight your values to you?
Yeah, absolutely it did. Yeah, it really did. And this is, where we talk about this idea of if you're triggered, are they your tribe? Sometimes them not being your tribe is the perfect way to open up to who your tribe is going to be, or to put you on the path to finding your tribe, or to reflecting to you what's deeply important.
To give you almost more furor, isn't it?
When we're challenged and when we don't agree with something and we feel like we must right or wrong, that's often where we find this incredible energy all of a sudden, and we're inspired to go and make our mark, to shine a different light. And that's also why we need to surround ourselves not always with like-minded people, but people who challenge us, to help us get congruent. Because if we're surrounded by people who all think like we think, we become complacent, we stagnate, we think other people will take care of it, we get dependent on other people. It's not really that very nice place to be. We don't want a utopia like that. We actually all grow most when we have that, when we're on those edges, of discomfort, because they help reflect to us what's important. And even when you're surrounded by, and often family is so great for this, because family push our buttons intentionally to help us to grow. And so extended family do that, and my husband and I often find ourselves reconnecting and checking in together on our values around parenting and raising our kids when we're around broader family. because because as much as we love them, they have different parenting practices and different choices, and rather than us going right straight into judgment on those, because we recognize, like anything, they might be showing their love in a different way, but we still connect in with the way that we want to show it, which is through respectful parenting and things like that. And so it can be incredibly galvanizing to be triggered, because it helps you realize what's important to you and what lights you up and what doesn't.
And it can be just such a lovely reminder of, oh, that's why I do this.
Yeah.
Because I don't know about you, but I certainly find that in parenting, particularly this conscious parenting path, is it almost after so many years, it used to be so front of mind because it was such a steep learning curve and I had so much shit to work out of my own stuff before I could get to this kind of peaceful place, so to speak.
Yeah.
Not that it ever is, right? Don't strive for peace. But anyway, side note. And it becomes almost effortless, that to some extent it becomes your way of being and you forget. It's like not seeing your genius, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you get rubbed up against these opportunities, these people. Well, school holidays, when you have a lot of play dates, you certainly meet it there. And it's such a lovely reminder to go, oh, ouch, I don't like that. Why don't I like that? Oh, because this is important to me. And as opposed to going, I don't like that person, you can't come here, I don't want to be around you. Thank you for that reminder, because I had gotten complacent about, I'm just doing my thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I really know that.
And I know you do. And I think this is such a lovely way of flipping those people that we find most jarring to ourselves as almost, it is a practice in gratitude of just being able to almost in your mind's eye or within your heart bow in gratitude towards them for reminding you about why something is really important to you to chase, to follow, to be, to do differently. And there's never any accidents in that.
Because we absolutely perceive what we need to perceive in order to grow in greatest alignment with what's important to us. Because everything is our perception. And I think it's so perfect that we can perceive things the way that we need to for where we are and where we want to go, even if we're not always conscious of that. And I find that so fascinating, because we're all unfolding on this path wherever we're going, on what we need to expand upon. And I had that same feeling. I was like, even though I might feel like as a coach we might not particularly value mothering, like I love that I love what I love what I do. I love this, and I love that I get to do this, and just seeing my children the way that they were at these family events, I just thought, this is enough, just to see them the way that they are, in their own bodies, in themselves, in the world, is enough. And to have that experience is, I think, especially when you're being triggered, rather than get stuck in the blame game or get stuck in your story around your family, instead find the appreciation for what they offer you in terms of reflecting you back to you, what's important to you, and why you value what you do. And
we all talk about this why in our culture, don't we? That you need to know your why. You need to have your why. Well, there's people around you who offer you a touch base with your why daily.
Yeah, and so often, I think we're often taught to run from them or, like label them toxic people.
Toxic. Get rid of them out of your life.
Toxic people, but those toxic people are full of such wisdom for you. Because the thing is, one person's toxic person might be another person's friend, because it just depends on how you're perceiving that person. So it's not there's no hard and fast rule around what makes a toxic person. They're ultimately all, shards of ourselves, mirror shards of ourselves.
And the more we don't like something, the more we have not remotely made friends with that within ourselves.
Yeah. As brutal as that may be sometimes.
Totally, right? I also think it's probably worth just touching on family dynamics maybe here, because I do also think, or I have particularly, even in these school holidays, I've been reflecting that. I had one particular play date that, those play dates, you think, play dates work or they don't work. And you think, no, this is going to be great. And then it's just not, and it's the hardest work you do. Those play dates.
Yeah, and what is that? Can you, because there'll be some, I imagine that there'll be quite a few of our listeners who maybe have kids who are a little bit too young for like that regular play date thing. So can you talk us through what that, tell me.
Play dates.
Yeah, the Playdates. Playdates 101.
Playdates 101. Feed them. That's my Playdates 101. Kids that have full tummies play better. So it doesn't matter who I'm having playdates with. I always make sure I've got food, and often they eat more food than you expect. So I always have several things. So if we've got a 2-hour playdate, there'll be 2 platters of something. If we have, this particular playdate, we ended up going over 48 hours. So that's probably part of the problem. But at the start of every school holidays, I give each of my children the opportunity to pick 2 friends. And so that's 6 kids. So they pick 2 friends each, and I make it a priority to organise with those parents catch-ups every school holidays. And with my older ones, that includes a sleepover. With my younger one who's 4, it's not a sleepover, but it's a play date. So they pick 2 friends each, and that's where my school holiday mapping starts. So I lock in all the play dates a good 2 to 6 weeks before the school holidays. And then I build my school holidays around that. So that's how that works. Usually there's an activity. So either, no different to kids that are really little, you start them off with an activity, and depending on what those dynamics are like, it'll depend on how I change. Some kids, those dynamics are just magic, and they just play so beautifully that you don't even see them. They just potter around in their own little world and their bubble, and they're just loving on each other, and it's just like so symbiotic. I just feel like there's angels singing and everybody's cup is filled and everyone's happy when they leave. And then there's play dates where those dynamics can just go to hell and it is not working. And it's really hard work. So instead of this, you play, I'll do this, I am all of a sudden having to deal with dynamics and different parenting styles, virtue of the children that are in my house.
And you can really clearly see that through the child.
Oh, so clear.
So give us an example. So what are some that stand out for you as a, parenting style reflected through the child's behaviour?
Jeez, Bridget, you're putting me on the spot here.
I'm just interested. I'd like to hear.
Oh, okay, let me get rid of the knots in my stomach. Sometimes I have to remind myself this goes public and I have to, just go, hang on, Julie, just scale back the anxiety. All right, let's think about some dynamics. So there can be very assertive, in inverted commas, bossy children. I struggle immensely with the bossy child who it has to be their way, and they're like a princess or a prince, I suppose, and it's, well, I don't want to play that, and she's not playing with me, and he's not doing what I want to do, and I don't want to do this, and I want this, and give me that. And I'm like, oh. There's that child.
Yes.
Sometimes we have to do a bit of what this person wants and a bit of what that person wants, and that's a friendship and that's compromise. But it's a constant negotiation.
So in the case of that child, is that the child whose parent has found it easier just to give them what they want than allow them to learn, no, or learn?
I imagine so.
Turns?
I imagine the intensity. I mean, those kids are pretty fierce. I imagine the intensity of emotion is too much for those parents. And I don't judge that. And so I think there's placating. I often think it's a trait, not always, but it does tend to get worse with the more kids you have. So as they move down in sibling order, you kind of let shit go. So in general, by the time you get to the 4th child, I was joking about this the other day. Who was I joking with some mums at school? There'll be some sort of something, and there's a bit of when something happens on the playground, I'm not the person that rushes in straight away. I am aware. I watch what's happening, and only if I need to step in will I step in. But we were joking the other day. Oh, it was my friend who has 4 kids as well, and her son's like, I think he's about a year older than my littlest 4-year-old, and they were she'd seen a toy he was playing with, and she beelined for it and snatched it, and he saw it and he snatched it back, and I'm like, 4th kids, who's going to win? Can't even pick it. But if my 4th child went up to a 1st child, well, she's walking away with that toy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because of the just different ways that they've been
Well, they've been raised and they've learned, right? They have siblings. They have to fight sometimes for what they want.
Yeah, they're not being given everything on a platter, so they have to learn very quickly how to negotiate and maneuver.
Yeah, and get manipulative.
Yeah.
You know, get their needs met because mum or dad aren't necessarily there to do it for them. So, you know, I find that a really tricky dynamic. Then there's play dates where kids steal stuff.
Steal stuff?
Slip it in their pockets.
No way.
Yeah. That's an interesting one. Or you say, no, we don't do that. And then they do it anyway. I find that really challenging too.
Right.
And then there's just sometimes different ways of communicating. So there'll be the kids that completely shut down and withdraw. But there's a level of power in that too, because they just want to play the way that they want to play. And it's easy to say, well, she's not doing what I want to do. So I'll just be quiet until she comes back. And, you know, in the meantime, it's just a schmozzle. And then there's play dates where, you know, kids are a bit obnoxious and then the other way around. So I do think there's a lot of wisdom in helping navigate your children's tribe. And I do think you have that level of influence as a parent, particularly as a mother who's engaged in the kinder or school community.
So how do you, in the case of your child wanting to play with someone who you very clearly don't want them to play with, or, you know,
We're just busy.
Just busy. Perpetually busy.
I just go, yeah, sure, we'll do that. Yeah, we'll do that. If I have that situation at the moment, if it does get there, I'll organise a play date out somewhere. So we meet somewhere. I think neutral territory usually works better than in a house for those types of difficult dynamics. And it'll be 2 hours. I know, I'm out.
Yeah.
There's always parents floating around, which I think makes that generally easier. But I also think kids can be infatuated with different children while they're learning something. So I'm also aware of I don't necessarily have to facilitate the relationships I don't like or say no, because if I just kind of let it play out, they learn what they need to learn and they actually make those choices themselves.
Because I always think it's so interesting who our children choose to become friends with. And, you know, therefore the parents we might be thrust together with and what we then have to maybe face in that parent. And also to trust, if we're uncomfortable with it, how our child's going to navigate it without us having to jump in and control it. Like these are all things that I'm just entering, we know, with my son in prep. And I find it really interesting. It's a whole different territory.
Yeah, it really is. So anyway, I had this one play date that was horrendous, and the way that this child was speaking to, so she was the third child, was speaking to my third child, which, right, even in my head as I'm watching it play out, I'm going, she's you. Like, it was like instantly true. Well, because she's a third child, right? Just by virtue of whatever was irritating the girl that I had for a play date about my third child, I just thought there must be a mirror there, right?
Yeah.
Youngest of 3 siblings, and the way that she was speaking was so cutting and just derogatory and
towards your daughter.
Yeah, towards my 4-year-old. And my son, so her brother, can be always, that's a conversation with him because he's like, we did yesterday or whatever. And I'm like, mate, she's 4. Like, just help her open the gate. Not like, you can do it. You know, as if you're stupid.
Like full of attitude.
Yeah. And then, you know, anyway, it went on and on until I was listening to them. I was in the kitchen and I was listening to them, and this little 4-year-old's with these 4 big kids on the trampoline, and she's not getting on there. So she's like being the ball girl. So every time the ball goes off the trampoline, they have these basketball rings, she's like running around picking the ball up the ground and handing it back, and running, picking the ball up the ground and handing it back, just to be involved. And then all she's getting is this sniping back at her. And I'm in the kitchen, I can feel it like building in my body.
Oh, gosh.
We're hitting, you know, at the 36-hour mark or whatever of this photo. And then there was this one slicing comment, and it was all 3 of them. So my 2 and the play. And I don't like that they feed off each other. That bothers me. And I was like, in the kitchen, slammed down my cloth. I was like, that's fucking it. Right. I know. And I'm in the kitchen. Even as I'm in the kitchen, I'm storming towards the trampoline. I'm in my head going, don't do it, Julie. You're triggered. You're triggered. Just calm down. Take a breath. And I'm like, fuck that, I'm going. And I got to the trampoline, took a breath at the trampoline because they all saw me like storm out. And I'm like, I don't normally do this at play dates. And that's how I started. And the fourth child was there as a really good friend's daughter, and I actually love her. She's gorgeous. And she had told her mum, and I saw her mum last night. She told me that. She told me she'd never seen Julie do this. And then Julie said she's never done that. She's thought, I've got no idea what's happening next.
So what did you say?
I can't remember. It's like, I just reminded them how old she was, that they're 3 times her age. 3 times. And when they were 4, none of them would be doing half the shit that she does or is expected to do at that age.
Yes.
Like, not even in the ballpark. And the fact that you have these buddies in prep who are so precious and she's littler than them, you just need to get some perspective. And it is not okay the way that you are communicating, and I have had enough of it. Like, it was really clear. That style of communication is now stopping. We're not doing that anymore. That is not how we roll in this house, blah, blah, blah. That stuff.
Yeah.
But I must have been pretty fierce because it was pretty much deadpan silent in my house from then on.
Okay.
The communication changed with my youngest because then, of course, in the play date, I'm dealing with then also the fallout from my 4-year-old. So it's like crazy intense dynamics, and I'd had enough. But it did make me realise post that event that, my third child, Lola, whilst she was really difficult when she was younger, as she's gotten older, she's gotten super easy. She's easy to ignore.
Right.
Like, if I'm honest about it.
Yeah. Because she just goes with the flow.
She has the least needs out of anybody.
And that's always a red flag. Like, can that be a red flag? Like the one with the least needs? Because you're kind of like, do you skip over it?
But then a situation like this arises, right?
To call you into
And
that.
I'm like, bang, she's in focus.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so how perfect then.
Yeah, right. So this is the whole point of this very long-winded story that we've gone off on. But that was what I was reflecting on afterwards is, one, I was so beautifully reminded of why communication is so important for me. Because you can forget and you can get a bit lax and off the track, and, I'd let a few things go and I was like, oh, well, they'll be right. This kind of, when you get lax.
Yeah.
And then listening to this made me go, no, okay, this is really important to me. It feels like it slices my heart open when I hear people speaking to someone like that. And I don't want that for my children. I don't want them to experience that. I mean, admittedly, they will in the world, but not in an environment I can control.
Yeah.
And I don't want them thinking that's okay to be spoken to like that in a relationship, or to speak to someone like that in a relationship. That's not okay. So I was hitting my values of parenting, communication, relationship, like ping, ping, ping. And I thought, how fantastic, because this is really important to me. And it had slid a bit in my in the conscious concept.
And it's a good example of the fact that in your highest values, it doesn't mean it's always like beer and Skittles and you're loving on it.
No.
But it's also where there's a lot of pain, but it's pain you're willing to face, the obstacles you're willing to work through.
Yeah.
And that's a great example of that.
Yeah. And also then the flip when I was thinking about dynamics is, how does this enemy, in inverted commas, on the outside serve? How does the war outside serve? Well, it brings the peace between my third child and myself, and it brings the peace between my husband and myself, because we're then having conversations that we're aligned in together, and that fuels the love, and that fuels the connection, and it fuels our focus back on her, and that fuels her love for, and
her feelings of connection with you guys,
right?
And, she's back in the fold if she was feeling out of it a bit,
right?
Yeah, perfect.
And so I just thought it's worth also thinking about these situations and people that we want to say are wrong, and they do wrong things to us and they do wrong things to our children, and it's so scarring, is to look at how is it also healing and amazing.
Yeah. Because
there is both sides. It's simply a matter of our values and voids wanting us to perceive it only one way. So in the end, I'm, a day away from when that play date ended, and I'm actually like, Well, that was kind of awesome because I have just like cataclysmically learnt a whole heap in 24 hours, brought back into focus things on my values that had started slipping. And if we have a play date again, which I'm not rushing back for, but if we did, I wonder by virtue of that if it would even present itself.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, was it like, again,
what she sent to me as a gift anyway?
That's right. You know, and was it simply that you needed to perceive her that way in order to run in and kind of get aligned again with Lola?
Yeah,
you know, and
totally, right?
And therefore, if you're much more connected with Lola next time, is that even going to play out?
Yeah.
Like, that's what's so interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe we'll have another play date, I don't know. But it is just really interesting when thinking about the tribe.
Yeah.
Right.
And so much that we so desire people like us, right? Like we so desire to connect with like-minded people.
Yeah.
And yes, we need that because, you know, they're also the people that can help carry us forward. But at the same time, we just as equally have to appreciate those that we might feel are not our tribe because they help us get into alignment again and they help us break our polarizations a little bit and find the wisdom at the same time as pursuing our path, which I think is ultimately what we all need to find is that sweet spot between those two things.
When it comes to our sexuality, we want to look at the beliefs and the meanings that we've picked up as much as the ones that we've made up about our experiences.
In our Loathing to Loving program, we look at relationships to our family, partner, children, and feminine self, and spend a module in Nourish and Nurture, deeply expanding that feminine wisdom. Our Sensuality and Sexuality course is the next dive exclusive to those who've taken part in the Loathing to Loving program.
The reason for that is the theory and the tools that you gain from Loathing to Loving underpin the knowledge of the psychosexual story that we build upon in our Sensual Sexual Deep Dive. For $289, you can join us in our exclusive Sensuality Sexuality course or 3 payments of $97. We really want to walk you through loving your sexuality more than your sex life.
To find out more and join us, go to nourishingthemother.com.au/online programs. So I'd love to hear from you if you've also found this realization perhaps on your own journey where the very people that trigger you are actually helping guide you at the
or
same
even
time.
If by virtue of listening to this podcast, the very next play date or situation you have where you feel triggered, whether you're able to do the mental math almost in the moment and see how it changes your perspective of this person or situation.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing to do. So if you'd like to connect with us, that's nourishingthemother.com.au, Nourishing the Mother on Facebook and Instagram. And to connect with you, Jules,
is thepleasurenutritionist.com and Newbridge.
suburbansandcastles.com. And don't forget, please, to rate us on iTunes if you can, or leave us a review on Facebook because we love those. Love to hear how the podcast is resonating with you. And don't forget to nourish the mother, to rock the family. And we'll see you next week when we continue to peel back the layers on your mothering journey.
This year, the Wellness Summit returns.
For those of you on your own health journey, you know that a lot of times it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and you think you're doing well and then something else pops up. It's like you're always learning. It's not something that just happens overnight and suddenly you're well.
If I actually had been so wrong about this really important thing in my life, what else was I wrong about? And it got me down this place of questioning all the concepts that I had. And then I came to one question, which was, who am I beyond concept?
When I was a little kid, I really always had trouble with food intolerances. I realised that there was a lot to be said for the way you eat.
You come to the same place that I came to, and it's a place of complete freedom.
Joe Witten and Fuad Kassab feature at the 2018 Wellness Summit. Bigger and better than ever. Tickets on sale Friday, May 4 at thewellnesssummit.com.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/TheWellnessCouch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives. Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavor to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.